Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your daily source of black news, views, and opinions. Today is Wednesday, April 13th. I'm Mimi Brown.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, the Department of Housing and Urban Development wants to make it easier for people with criminal records to have access to housing. What HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge is doing to make sure that the job gets done. Meanwhile, the head of the WNBA Players Union says that players are worried about Brittney Griner as her detention has been extended until May 19th. Then, the three former Minneapolis police officers found guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights have rejected a plea deal in a criminal case related to George Floyd's death.
Plus, yesterday's price is not today's price. 50 Cent has joined the Hollywood elite. We'll let you know how the Power universe has paid off for 50, and Justice Smollett could be receiving a huge lump sum of money real soon, and the pay cut is in the millions. That's right. We have all of that and so much more. This is our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
The Department of Housing and Urban Development is trying to make it easier for people with criminal records to get housing. HUD Secretary Marcia Fudge has told employees to review policies that deny people with a criminal past from obtaining housing. A memo from the department is giving employees 6 months to come up with ideas on how to tackle the issue. The move would help nearly 1 in 3 Americans with their criminal records, most of whom are black or brown, qualify for housing. This comes weeks after the Biden administration announced a plan to fight racial and ethical bias in home appraisals. Secretary Fudge says denying people housing because of a criminal record is potentially discriminatory. This is, it's definitely discriminatory. This is a move that would have widespread implications for so many homes, so many black people, so many brown people. Housing is such an important component to getting back on your feet. So we're talking about people who have criminal records. So, you do your time, you want to come home, you want to, provide for your family. And a lot of times, when we're talking about public housing, we may be talking about, something like Section 8. And if you have a criminal record, you can't go home and join your family because you can't live there. So this would, allow people to be able to go home and not worry about, what they're going to do or separating families any further because they're now able to join their family back at home.
Marcia Fudge, she tweeted that this month that we're in right now is the Fair Housing Month as well as Second Chance Month. So I believe that is another reason why she's very passionate about this month. And so she also reached out and gave us some tweets online that I wanted to just give us a little bit about what she said that they heard directly from people who were impacted by this about the overuse of the criminal record screening. And so they found that a lot of the people that were affected by this were people who had 30-year-old convictions, people who had misdemeanor records. So we're not talking about like super huge convictions. We're talking about minor issues that are long gone 30 years ago, shouldn't be affecting you today. And they also found that there was little evidence that proved that this screening even made housing a safer place. So it's really something that should have been done a long time ago, but I'm happy that Marcia Fudge is making sure that it's at the top of her list.
Yeah. It's always a problem coming back into society. We do understand that. And when you think about people being evicted and things of that nature, black women is the highest number than anyone. But when we talk about this particular case, let's just talk about getting people back into society, welcoming them back in, making sure they can hit the ground running, so to speak, because you already feel like you're coming back into a world that you're not familiar with, that you're unsure about. And this will give you some kind of foundation that you need to move forward and feel good about taking the steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. I'm just really happy to know that it doesn't, it's no correlation that this screening process doesn't make anything safer necessarily. And like you said, Mimi, I think people deserve to be back with their families. Like most years, the party in power usually gets beat up during the midterm elections, and Democrats are expected to have a very hard time keeping both chambers of Congress. But Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, he says that if Republicans aren't careful, they could mess up a sure thing. McConnell says that the GOP nominates unacceptable candidates that win primaries, they will go on to lose to Democrats in November. Now, the Kentucky Republican isn't the only member of his party warning that it can happen this fall. Other moderate and more traditional politicians, they are worried that candidates supported by former President Trump will kill their party's chances of winning either chamber of Congress.
The head of the WNBA Players Union says players are worried about Brittney Griner. Nneka Ogwumike, who is also a Los Angeles Sparks player, says they are extremely concerned about Griner, who has been held in a Russian prison since February. The Players Union chief says they are really worried about Griner's mental health. Meanwhile, the WNBA commissioner is also speaking out about Griner's detention during the WNBA draft early this week. Take a look.
On bringing Brittney Griner home. This is an unimaginable situation for BG to be in. She continues to have our full support, and she's just been such a great person in the league that I can't be any more real about the situation she's in, and certainly we're trying everything we can, every angle, working through with her legal representation, her agent, elected leaders, the administration, just everybody in our ecosystem to try and find ways to get her home safely and as quickly as we can.
Her detention has been extended until May 19th. Griner was arrested after Russian police said they found a vaping device with cannabis oil inside her luggage. Yeah, this is a problem. And, you know, you think about the war that's going on with Ukraine and Russia and how President Biden feels about what's going on with Putin. We don't want that used as leverage in this situation. We want to make sure that they're not abusing her mentally and physically. And when she comes back home, she will be safe. We're hoping that can happen sooner than later. We know we do have to wait probably another month for that from what they're saying. But it's important to get her back on American soil, and I think the WNBA really needs her. I mean, she's a big part of that league, and I'm just really applauding them for standing up for her the way they are.
Yeah, you know, Romeo, and I'm glad that the WNBA commissioner is using a platform like the WNBA draft to speak out about this. You know, there's no bigger platform, I would assume, in that league where, you know, you can make an announcement like this, that they are working with the authorities to bring her home. And I'm glad the Players Association president went on Good Morning America and also use that platform to bring awareness to the situation, because the reality is it's going to be on us, her friends, her family, you know, media outlets like Fox Soul, to bring out, to, you know, make people aware of what is going on, you know. And it's kind of like reminiscent to Breonna Taylor. Like, we're going to have to say her name to keep it in the forefront, because if we don't, who knows, this may get swept under the rug, and we just can't have that.
You know, Mimi, I definitely agree that the draft was a great place, but I'm just happy that they're standing behind her at all, because how many times have you seen a person's company, when something like this happens, they kind of distance themselves from that person? And so the fact that they're even supporting her at the capacity that they are is beautiful. And also, you know, I think what is happening is what her friends and family were all afraid of happening in the first place, of Russia using her as a pawn. And I believe that they are absolutely doing that now, moving it back. And I'm nervous, Romeo, you say another month, what if they move it back again? And at this point, I think more needs to be done. And I think a lot is being done, but even more needs to be done. Just speaking out about it as a WNBA commissioner, is that going to get the job done?
You know, the players said something that was so important. They said they all recognize this could have been them, you know. So I feel like they're going to continue to speak out. They're going to continue to do what they do to help her, because they all go overseas to play, whether, you know, it be Poland or Russia or just a different country. So they see themselves in Brittney Griner, and they see themselves in what is happening right now.
Absolutely. That's a great point.
A federal courthouse in Florida was supposed to be renamed for a black man, but a right-wing congressman was able to get his fellow lawmakers to stop the move. The federal courthouse in Tallahassee was going to be renamed for State Supreme Court Justice Joseph Hatchett. He was the first black state Supreme Court justice in the South. He died last year at the age of 88, but Representative Andrew Clyde of Georgia began passing a news article around from 1999 to his fellow GOP colleagues. It detailed an appeals court decision on the judge made to strike down a public school policy allowing school prayer at graduation ceremonies. Before Clyde showed this story to others, though, the building renaming ceremony was expected to sail through the House. You know, this is really unfortunate. This man spent his life fighting for racial equality. You know, every day in this country, we walk on roads, on bridges, on, you know, just streets named after Confederate soldiers who have, you know, fought against America, right? We use money every day for people who have owned slaves. And this man who literally fought for racial equality now is not going to get his just due because of a ruling that he made what is that, 23 years ago?
You know, Mimi, and on top of that, we walk in schools, we walk in our institutions. We are forced to go into those institutions, gyms, buildings, on top of that are named after these same awful human beings. And so it's so interesting. I really believe that because Judge Ketanji Brown, she has made so many people upset, and because Republicans, they weren't able to stop her confirmation. They weren't able to make her uncomfortable during her confirmation hearings. They're like, okay, cool, we'll find a way around it. And so I don't want to hear that racism is not alive. I don't want to hear that there are not racist Republicans, because this is a subconscious, not subconscious, this is passive aggressive racism. So it's not direct. It's like, we're going to find a different way to stop your voice being heard. But again, glad that Fox News Black Report is here, and then we can talk about this story.
But it's so in your face, and the pushback with people of color just not letting them have their justice due is just such a problem. So many people have a past. Many people have skeletons in the closet, right? And things don't necessarily stop them, especially when they're not people of color. When they're white people, they normally get in the door and they'll have issues. They'll still talk about those things that happened in the past, but they still get their justice due. It's important that this happens because this is wrong in so many ways.
You know what, Romeo, and two, I just want to point out that he was an HBCU grad. He went to Harvard Law. He couldn't even stay in the hotel where he took the bar exam in 1959 because of Jim Crow laws, you know? I mean, during his legal career, he worked for the NAACP. You know, he did so much. You know, he was nominated by President Jimmy Carter in 1979. I mean, think about all the things that he had to face, all of the things that he had to fight against, not only for black people, but all the barriers he probably had to break down for himself just to be in that position. You know, so and it's just sad that these lawmakers who we know they did not have to face half of that to get where they are, can make this decision.
You know, and I really feel like there's going to be a place for him somewhere, and it might not be where it wanted to be now, but there's going to be someone that finds a good place to make sure that he is acknowledged the way that he should be.
Absolutely.
This is a part of history I'm glad we're talking about, and something good will come out of this conversation.
Romeo, absolutely. An Alaska man will spend the next 32 months of prison for threatening to kill 2 U.S. senators in jail. Now, 65-year-old J. Allen Johnson, he sent 17 threatening voicemails to Lisa Murkowski as well as Dan Sullivan between the time period of April to September 2021. Now, prosecutors say Johnson intended to take retaliation on the lawmakers for doing their work. Johnson's lawyer says that his client was suffering from pandemic-related isolation, which contributed to his behavior.
The 3 former Minneapolis cops found guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights are rejecting a plea deal in a criminal case related to George Floyd's death. We're talking about back in March, the former officers were offered a plea deal. Tutile, J. Alexander King, and Thomas Lane faced state charges of aiding and abetting in their role in the death of Floyd. All 3 men are free on bail and have not been sentenced for the conviction in federal court. The state charges stemmed from the men not doing anything as Derek Chauvin placed his knee on Floyd's neck, killing him.
And the family of Daunte Wright wants the Minnesota Attorney General to file an appeal. They say Kim Porter's short sentence is not justice. Porter was sentenced to only 2 years in prison. The former Minneapolis cop, however, will only serve 16 months. Porter, who shot and killed Wright, says she mistook her gun for her taser. The sentence is lower than Attorney General Keith Ellison wanted. He initially asked for 7 years. He has until the end of May to file an appeal. Meanwhile, a local community center coming together this week to honor Daunte's life. Monday marked 1 year since he was shot and killed. His friends and family held a candlelight vigil.
Stacey Abrams has officially kicked off her second run for governor of Georgia. Abrams' campaign released his first TV commercial yesterday. The campaign plans to spend $1 million on TV and digital ads. Abrams' spot, it focused on her campaign themes of Medicare expansion. They also go after Governor Brian Kemp. Abrams lost the 2018 governor's race to Kemp by only 1.4%. Kemp is in a very tough place and a tough race for the Republican nomination for governor. He's facing former Georgia Senator David Perdue in the primary election.
A Georgia bill that would create an election police force isn't worrying Democrats in the state. Last week's bill, SB 411, passed the state house. The Republican-backed bill would give the Georgia Bureau of Investigation the ability to probe election fraud and crime. Democrats say the election unit won't stop them from fighting for the rights of Black and Latino voters. Georgia became ground zero in former President Trump's big lie about election fraud in the state around the nation in 2020. The Georgia law mimics one passed by the Florida legislature earlier this year.
And Baltimore State Attorney Marylin Mosby, who is under federal indictment for fraud, is kicking off her re-election campaign with a YouTube commercial. The 3-minute video was released yesterday. She touts her record of a 90% conviction rate. Mosby, who tried the officers who killed Freddie Gray in 2015, has been indicted for allegedly lying on loan applications when she purchased 2 Florida homes. Supporters of Mosby say the indictment is retribution for going after the officers in the Freddie Gray case.
The man suspected in yesterday's New York subway shooting is in police custody. 62-year-old Frank James is accused of shooting 10 people on a Brooklyn subway train. Authorities say that they recovered a gun along with multiple high-capacity magazines. Police also found a key to a U-Haul van at the scene. James has ties to Philadelphia as well as Wisconsin. People say, and police say, that the van rented under his name was found a short distance away from where the shooting took place.
After we make an apprehension, we will be able to really piece all the pieces to the puzzle together. This was a sick act on innocent New Yorkers, and we're unsure of the motive or on exactly where he came from, but we are carrying through on several leads, and we feel confident that we're going to apprehend this person.
It all unfolded yesterday morning as frightened commuters ran from the train as others limped out. One rider collapsed on the platform, and investigators believe the gunman's weapon jammed, preventing him from continuing to fire. Still, nearly 30 people were injured in some way after the attack. 5 people are in critical condition but are expected to survive. Police say the attack is not being investigated as terrorism, but they're not ruling anything out.
And Uber and Lyft customers are criticizing the ride-sharing app for briefly implementing surge pricing in New York just after that subway attack. The shooting shut down subway service in the area of Sunset Park where the shooting happened. Commuters turned to Uber and Lyft, which triggered surge pricing, and some people reporting prices as much as $70 or higher. Some took to Twitter to complain, one person accusing Uber of looking to profit off of people suffering.
New York Lieutenant Governor Brian Benjamin has resigned after being arrested in a federal corruption investigation. He's accused of participating in a scheme where he was given campaign contributions from a real estate developer in exchange for using his influence to get $50,000 in state funds for a nonprofit the developer controlled. Benjamin has pleaded not guilty.
Oklahoma now has the strictest abortion ban in the country. The state's governor, Kevin Stitt, signing it into law yesterday. It makes performing an abortion a felony, the only exception being to save the life of the mother. Anyone who breaks the law could face up to 10 years in prison and a $100,000 fine. Similar laws recently approved in Arkansas and Alabama have been blocked by federal courts. Stitt says he expects legal challenges for this new law as well.
And a white New Jersey teacher was suspended after going on a racist diatribe on a special needs class. Witnesses say Lori Stone went off after 2 7th graders began to argue with her in her classroom at the Academy Middle School in New Jersey. Students say Stone used racial stereotypes in a 45-minute tirade against Black and Latino students. Stone asked the kids, quote, "What are your chances in life after doing something with yourself other than sitting home waiting for your welfare check?" Students say Stone will go off on them frequently. Jersey City school officials say the angry student and angry teacher, they say that the incident is under investigation. This is a middle school here. First things first, this teacher also said things like, "How many white people came and shot you today?" And she also said things, "Your neighborhood is filled with violence. Who is perpetrating the violence? Black on black. The whites aren't coming here shooting you all down. How many white people came and shot you today?" And so again, as parents, you guys have to weigh in on this. I'm not a parent, but I could just imagine my niece or my nephew ever experiencing this in school and the anger I would have in my brain.
You know, understanding this and knowing where you're teaching, knowing the community that you're in, and understanding the community is what's so important. We have this issue when it comes to police departments as well. We do know that. But here's a situation where if you're a teacher, here's your moment where you can teach the right thing, where you can even discuss history with your school and bring people together. Instead, you're finger pointing, you're degrading. You're doing so many things here that's wrong. Like, if I was a parent, I would, if this teacher's not fired, not out of here 100%, I might pull my child out of that school. But this is a problem.
No, you're absolutely right, Romeo. I mean, the fact that she was suspended and not fired is a problem within itself, And let's not overlook that this was a special needs class. Right? Like, you send your child to school, especially, a parent, you send your child to school to learn. But if they have special needs, you're actually entrusting that teacher more because they are tender and they need extra care.
Yes.
And then she's teaching them for 45 minutes. Saying things like that. So, I think we need to definitely follow this. But I really have a feeling that, they need to probably fire this teacher versus suspending, because I just don't know how you go back to teaching.
Well, the thing is, too, Mimi, is that this is not just a situation, a problem for this teacher, not just a situation or a problem for the school or the district. This is a nationwide problem.
Absolutely.
Because there are so many other white people that feel this exact same way and hold it and close it in. And like you said, on a special needs classroom, a middle school, so impressionable, that I really just feel bad for every student that had to witness this. And again, I want this lady in jail. Forget fired. I want her behind bars.
If she's not fired, it could be a problem moving forward. All right, lawyers for a man who was shot by California police responding to a restaurant fight say their client was the good guy. Surveillance video captures the fight over a handgun in a San Jose restaurant last month. Lawyers for Keon Green say he was breaking up the fight and grabbed the weapon when cops came in. Police admit they shot the wrong person, but they say officers told Green to drop the weapon several times before a cop shot him. Green, who is recovering from his injuries, is filing a lawsuit against San Jose police.